Hey guys, so in today's video, I wanted to jump on here and give you a review that I said I was going to give you. A review with my full thoughts on the new Cheeks Out Freestyle Cream Bronzers from Fenty Beauty. I have two different shades here. I've already done an entire review on the new blushes from Fenty. For this review, I wanted to do something a little bit different. With this new launch in particular, I wanted to compare the formula to the Fenty Matchstix. Now, I've only ever tried this one shade, which is Mocha. It is like one of my favorite bronzers ever though. Instead of just giving you some information on these, I wanted to compare it to a formula that Fenty has already come out with and that I'm super familiar with. So if this comparison, if the demos and the swatches are all helpful, definitely make sure to give this video a thumbs up. I first want to start off with this new formula, the Cheeks Out Freestyle Cream Blushes. Bronzers. These retail for $32 and you get 0.22 ounces in here. That's about a normal amount of product for cream bronzers, definitely more product than you get with the cream blushes, which I was happy about. It is definitely more of an expensive product though. $32 for a cream face product is definitely up there. We'll talk more about the price per ounce for the Matchsticks later, but this definitely is a little bit more expensive. I bought two shades. So I have the shade 02 Butta Biscuit. This is described as being great for fair to light skin tones. And then I also purchased the shade 03 just to give you guys a reference. And this is the shade Macchiato, and it's described as being great for light to medium skin tones. I feel like Butta Biscuit is a really great neutral bronzer. This shade actually reminds me a lot of Baked from Milk Makeup, which is why I immediately really liked it. Shade Macchiato is definitely a little bit more warm toned, so it's not the most flattering for me, but if you do like a really warm toned bronzer, then I do think that that one will be suited better for you. But overall, there are 7 different bronzer shades. So Fenty describes this formula as a light as air, really creamy, sheer, but buildable formula that's really easy to work with and blend. The description is very reminiscent, if not the exact same, of how they describe their new cream blushes as well. And Fenty also says that this is a more long wear product, which some cream products definitely aren't. So we'll talk about what I think about the wear time later in the video. Let's first talk about what I think about this texture. I personally think that the way that Fenty describes this formula is way more accurate than the way that they describe their cream blushes. This is definitely a very creamy product. It melts very instantly when you touch it, but it doesn't feel like a lot of product on the skin. It feels slightly, very slightly tacky. You can really barely feel that it's there, but it has quite a bit of emollients. That's something that I'm actually really impressed with, the way that they were able to create a formula that was so emollient while also not feeling like a lot of product on the skin. I think that's really difficult to do. So how does this product actually look on the skin? What's the finish like? I'm wearing it on my cheeks today. The finish of this product is more on the natural side. It still has a creaminess to it. You can tell that when it's on the skin that it's a cream product. And that's definitely different than the cream blushes. That looked a little bit more like a staining sort of product. This one definitely has that creamy, natural look to it once it's applied to the skin, which I think a lot of you that wear cream products on an everyday basis like I do, I think you'll really appreciate that. And like that it looks like a cream bronzer rather than it looking too flat. It definitely has a little bit of life to it without it being too dewy. And that's another thing. I know a lot of people are afraid of cream products because they tend to be super dewy. Well, this one isn't. Let's jump into application because we all know that application is incredibly important. Let's first talk about the way that 02 Butta Biscuit applies. As I mentioned before, it's a very pretty neutral shade that a lot of you with fair skin I think are going to really enjoy. There's something incredibly natural about this, and immediately when I applied it to the skin, it looked like bronzed skin. You can see that I use a sponge typically with this product, and it really blends and melts into the skin very easily. Pigmentation, I think, is light to medium. You can definitely keep building on this product and it's going to give you more pigment, but it's not too pigmented that it's not easy to work with. So I think the pigmentation is pretty ideal for a more everyday, quick cream product. Blends very effortlessly. It doesn't look really choppy on the skin. As for the shade Macchiato, I think this has about the same amount of pigmentation, but it is a different shade. So I do have to be more careful with this shade. Like I mentioned before, it definitely is more on the warm side. Again, the texture is pretty much the same and the application is pretty much much the same as the shade Butta Biscuit, but I do think that this shade can start to look a little bit more muddy if you're not careful. There have been some times where I felt like this one looked a little bit more noticeable and slightly more choppy. Now that could just be because it's not my perfect bronzer shade. So because the pigmentation is more on the light to medium side, I don't think that this bronzer is an incredibly long wear cream bronzer, but I do think that it wears nicely and it doesn't wear off in patches, which I think is incredibly important. There's nothing that I hate more when I notice that my cheeks before the bronzer looked really smooth and even, and now it's kind of patched off. That's something that is very difficult to fix. One good thing about the formula is that I do think that you can reapply it as you go throughout the day because this formula likes to blend. You're not gonna have difficulty wearing this bronzer for 4 hours, adding a little bit more for some more color, and then feeling like the layers are kind of sitting on top of each other. This product is easy to work with in that way. I usually get about 7 hours of wear with this product. By then, I do think it starts to fade. One interesting thing about the formula, like I mentioned before, is it's movable, but I do feel like it sets down because it's more of a lightweight formula. I never feel like I'm going to touch my face and my bronzer is gonna kind of wear off or patch, which I do think is another thing that some people are afraid of with cream bronzers. So I am happy to say that I don't find that it's going to kind of wipe off the face if you're touching your face. I think that this bronzer in general, the formula, is going to be really good for those of you that don't want a bronzer that's too dewy. You want it to last a decent amount of time on the skin and you want it to look really natural. I do want to jump in to the Fenty Matchstix. As I talk about the Fenty Matchstix, I'm just going to start comparing it to the Cheeks Out Freestyle Cream Bronzers. So the Fenty Matchstix, you get 0.25 ounces in here and they retail for $25. This is a much better price per ounce. You get more product at a cheaper price than you do with these. That's something I noticed immediately. I wasn't sure why you were getting less product with this cream bronzer for $7 more. So that is something to keep in mind. There's definitely a price difference here. And within the Matchstix line, there are 22 different shades. Now keep in mind that that does include more concealer shades because this is used as a contour, bronze, and concealing product. As I mentioned before, I have the shade Mocha. This is more of a cool toned bronze shade. And ever since I found this shade, I have not been able to find another bronzer shade quite like it. I find that it looks really nice on my skin personally. As I mentioned before, anything too warm, I just don't find flattering on my skin. It tends to just look very apparent. So the Matchstick formula is, again, more of a concealing, bronzing, contouring product that is long wear. They're buildable, but they're a cream to powder formula. So that's definitely different from a formula like this that is quite emollient. Now, what is my personal experience with both of these textures? Again, as I just mentioned, this is lightweight, but it really has a rich emollients to it. It has a really nice balance to it. But the one thing that I love about the Matchsticks themselves is the formula. It is an incredibly unique formula. I think cream to powder isn't too far off. The best way that I can describe this formula is that it is incredibly thin. You can work in incredibly thin layers to build up color. Get into this with application, but that is what I think makes this product really blend into the skin and look like skin. Very quickly touching on packaging, because I think it's already obvious what the packaging is on these. Stick, you have a compact. Nice that you have a mirror in here to reapply and apply the product. The funny thing about the Matchsticks and the stick is it feels very firm, but when you go to apply it onto the skin, you don't have difficulty blending it. So the Fenty Matchsticks apply very evenly onto the skin, despite them being such a thin product. I use a beauty blender just the same way that I would with the Cheeks Out bronzers, and I work in thin layers and just build up the product where I want the most bronze look. The finish on this product is incredibly skin-like. It's definitely not flat, but it just looks like actual skin. And with a cream bronzer product, that's not something that you get all the time. Because you can work in such thin layers, it never builds up to look like a lot of cream product on the skin. It really isn't a very creamy product like I mentioned before. But the effect of this bronzer and the texture, the way it looks on the skin is really unlike any other product that I've used. It is an incredibly unique formula, and I actually kick myself myself for not trying it out earlier. I first tried this last summer when I was doing an entire week of a new cream bronzer on my channel, and this was by far one of my absolute favorites. Something that I also mentioned in that review is that it's difficult to find a product that is so lightweight while the pigmentation is so even and easy to blend onto the skin. It really is something special, and the way that this wears is also really nice. I think it's more long wearing than the Cheeks Out Freestyle. I think it's really the nature of the two formulas though. Because this is a little bit more thin, I think it has a better chance of sticking onto the skin and not moving. So these are definitely similar in a lot of ways. One, I think that the shades within both of the lines are really well thought out. I like that there's something for everyone. Both of these are really easy to blend, both are flattering on the skin, and neither of these patch off as you keep wearing them. So I think those are the main things that are very similar about these products. There are a couple of key differences. Here are the key differences between the product. One, the finish of these two products is very different. If you want more of a really creamy, true cream bronzer look to your skin, I would say go with the Cheeks Out formula. It's more on the thin side, which is a good thing in my opinion. It will still give you that really creamy, natural bronzed look. With the Fenty Matchstix, there's no other way I can describe it than it literally looks like skin. When you apply it onto the skin, it does not look like a lot of cream bronze product. It just looks like a very natural bronze effect. If I'm just being straightforward, I think that this formula is more unique. As I mentioned before, I think there's really not another bronzer product like it out there. It's not that this one isn't good, but just in comparison, if I'm really thinking about the product that I would reach for more, it would probably be the Fenty Matchstix. Because two, I think that this one is more long wearing and it's better suited for a variety of skin types. I think if you have oily skin, you can still pull this one off because it is so thin. But this one still is probably going to last a little bit longer on your skin. And also kind of the elephant in the room, in my opinion, is this is a better bang for your buck. 0.25 ounces for $25. Certainly for me, I would pay that over and over again for this formula. You get less product for a formula that I do think is just not as unique. Do I think it's still a good formula? Yes. And I was happy that Fenty came out with a cream bronzer that was thinner but still had a nice creaminess to it. And as a whole, I think out of the Freestyle line between the bronzers and the blushes, I think that the bronzers are a better formula. But there really is something about the Fenty Matchstix that have, for me, for a long time, given something different. Really not another formula out there like them. So I hope that you guys found this quick comparison video super helpful. And if you did, definitely make sure to give this video a thumbs up. I will also link down below the review that I put up on the Cheeks Out cream blushes if you're interested in that. Thank you as always for watching, guys, and I will see you in my next one.